This episode of I Work For Him is brought to you by SaferNet. Online, safernet.com. You've tuned into I Work For Him, the voice of collaboration for the faith and work movement.
And we are your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and our mission is to transform the workplace of every Christian into a mission field. What does that look like in your workplace? Well, let's find out right now.
You know, it's been 11 years now since the Lord launched I Work For Him. It wasn't our idea, it was all His. In that time, we've talked with over 4,000 people on over 2,000 podcasts and have highlighted the mission behind over 500 faith and work ministries. Most of those ministries are focused on discipling business owners and CEOs. There are a few that are focused on young professionals and people in the rank and file of a large organization who want more from their faith with regard to its impact on their work. And today's podcast is dedicated to one of them, introducing Lifework Leadership Dallas, Texas. We've covered different Lifework leadership cities over the years, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, and maybe even mentioned Orlando, but today a new city is being added to the international listing of Lifework Leadership. That's Dallas, Texas. Everything is big in Dallas, and everything is even bigger in Texas, and Lifework Leadership is going to be huge. John Dembeck, he's been given the mantle by the Lord to set up Lifework Leadership right there in Dallas, Texas, and he's here to tell you all about it and how you can get involved if you're in Texas. If you're not, maybe you can ask how you could bring it in to your city. Lifework Leadership is life-changing. John Dembeck, welcome to I Work For Him.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Jim and Martha. Awesome.
Well, we're glad to have you here. And one of the ways we love to start our show, John, is by just having you share a little bit about your Jesus story.
Sure. I was raised in a home where we went to a denomination. I like to say that I knew all about God, but I didn't know God. I had all the guilt, none of the grace. And so, I was raised in that, and I was successful in business and doing real well. But then life started falling apart on me. And that's when I had a radical encounter with the Lord in 1994. And running a software company. And then shortly after that, I really felt the call to ministry and went and got my education, my seminary degree and all of that, and entered into full-time ministry. And as you know, as we sit here, I wound up taking that experience and taking that into the business world.
So at what point in time did you realize that your work mattered to God, even though you weren't a church pastor anymore?
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a transition, Jim. I was actually pastoring when we plumb done ran out of money, and then I had to go and get a consulting job just to pay the bills. And then I realized in that time, as I was making such a difference in the workplace with my consulting job, and making some difference in the church, but realizing that there was a big, huge vacuum of need in the workplace. And there's a lot of pastors doing wonderful work, but what God had called me to do is minister in that workplace. And it's been a thrilling ride.
And we're going to hear lots more about it today. You know, John, it's funny how so many of us don't realize how important the day-to-day work is that God has us doing. Our friends at SaferNet work really hard day and night to keep our workplace safe, our work environment safe, by protecting us from viruses and hackers that might be trying to destroy our good work. Please check them out online, safernet.com, safernet.com, a powerful tool that works in any office environment.
So John, you were talking about, Jim said a little bit at the beginning, kind of gave it away. Lifework Leadership is coming to Dallas, and you are such a big part of that. How did you get introduced to Lifework Leadership yourself?
I was living in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and I was an assistant pastor at one of the Calvary Chapel Fort Lauderdale campuses. And it was actually a pastor, and that was part-time. It was actually one of the pastors on staff that had been through the program, says, John, you really got to go through this. At the time I was working for the Seminole Tribe of Florida with my day job. He said, really to be able to go through there and have an impact in your workplace is something that you ought to consider. So my work actually paid for me to go through that. And so it was in Fort Lauderdale in 2015, and it was life-changing.
How long did that last? I mean, how long does a Lifework Leadership class go?
It's about 9 months, once a month for 9 months, a half-day class, and a couple of full days in there for a retreat. So, yeah, it's a one-year semester, so to speak. And then you're inspired and equipped to go out and make a difference in your church and your community and your business.
So tell us about that a little bit. What was something that you learned or that you were inspired to do as a result of going through Lifework Leadership?
I recognized, I told you about the beginning of my calling when I was out in the workplace and pastoring a church, but it really became refined in that season. And going through that class with Stefan Tavigian and understanding that I was anointed for business and I was anointed to be able to go into the workplace. That clarified my calling in that time. And that was over the whole time. But I tell you, the one specific moment that stood out at me in that session was going through the compassion session with Tony Campola and going through that session and going to a halfway house and a field trip and visiting that stirred my heart with affection for people and for the needs that were out there in a way I've never really experienced before. And it was Lifework that introduced it. And that piece changed my life.
What do you mean it changed your life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I recognize I went through that and I said, what kind of needs do you have here? And they said, we need everything. And ironically, I had just been to a Christian thrift shop, tried to take my books and drop some things off. And they said, we don't take books anymore at the thrift shop. And when I went through there, they said, we need everything. We need books, we need magazines, we need this, we need that. But mostly what we need is we need a clothing for people to go to interviews. And I went and my heart was aching. My heart was breaking. I went home and I realized I got 2 suits. I wear them once a year. I, took one suit and gave it away. I cleaned my closet, and that has stuck with me through the rest of my life of just only having and using what I need versus accumulating stuff.
And I just think about the fact that how many of us don't get those kinds of opportunities intentionally, like what you were just saying, because you went on a field trip. Like, we don't do that.
I was thinking she was going to say, I was thinking about that, and my closet's so full of clothes, maybe I should give some away.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
I do that too.
Sorry.
He knows I do that. So he just egg me on.
Yeah.
But everybody could do that. Everybody that's listening. I mean, I love the fact that you said that they were like, we need everything. Like, let's really talk about, how people, I bet you they need accounting skills with, they need help with certain things. There's just, I think that so many of us forget that the gifts that God's given us to do in our daily work is for a reason as well. So that's so powerful.
I know you were
just being a.
I just had to say something. All right. So when you look at your work life before and after Lifework Leadership, when you went in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, somebody has to suffer and you had to go. Look at it. Give some comparisons. How did what you learned at Lifework impact your day-to-day in your job? And you've had multiple jobs since then. How has it?
Yeah, what it has me do is to understand, first of all, that work is important, that we can work as worship, and work is important. And so too often, I'm going to say sometimes, you can go to church and you can think that the most important thing for you to do at your job is to witness and to be teaching Bible studies at your job. And those are certainly important elements, but that's not why your employer hired you. Your employer hired you to work, and it's through working hard and being there and being that kind of witness that you really have an opportunity to share the gospel and be a witness for him. So what God has really showed me as I walk into any place now, my heart breaks for those particularly Christians that are there and are feeling less than fulfilled in their work. And wherever I go, that's a burden. I have a burden to be able to encourage people to what I call fully express who God has created them to be. And so when I walk into a place, is to be able to see somebody that's languishing and they have a faith. What are you doing with it? It's a difference between before I went through Lifework and afterwards. Even though as a believer, I recognize the value of work and faith, of course, is the ministry name, work and faith, and that both matter enormously to the Lord.
That's so good. And the fact that you just learned that it was important to articulate that to people. What are you doing? Seeing where they're at, it gave you that, like you said, it just pains you when you see people that are not living in that. So talk about your long-term relationships that you got out of your time involvement with Lifework Leadership.
Well, I mean, with the whole life work community, Stefan, I'm sure that, Stefan David might recognize my picture and maybe my name. But I'd be able to get connected with the life work community with Steve French, who's the global ambassador, and to be able to have connections now in the other cities that are around. And there's some alumni that I'm associated with. One of them is on my Work and Faith Matters board, as we continue to have work and faith as a priority. But those relationships, as you know, when you gather together for a period of time under a common mission and a common goal, it unites your hearts to each other. Now, unfortunately, well, no, I'm going to say unfortunately. Oh, I just did. But I was in Fort Lauderdale, and at the time when I graduated, I intended to go back as a coach and just continue. But the Lord had other plans, and He used the lack of finances to move us to Dallas Fort Worth. And so I couldn't continue in Fort Lauderdale. It's taken a little bit of time, but now I'm excited about bringing it to Dallas Fort Worth.
So it's great to have a perspective on what bringing Lifework Leadership to Dallas, Texas will make as an impact on Dallas, Texas. So maybe we should talk to somebody who brought Lifework Leadership to another city to hear what they've got to say. Well, John, I wanted to surprise you. I got Tammie McClafferty joining us today from Lifework Leadership in Jacksonville, Florida. She's getting her computer coming in. She's coming in hot. I'm sure she's always running fast and furious. But Tammie McClafferty has been running Jacksonville's Lifework Leadership for a really long time. I don't know. Tammie McClafferty, welcome back to I Work for Him.
Well, hi guys, how are you?
Hi, Tammie.
Hey, John, how you doing? Good to see you again.
So Tammie, it's been a lot of years since you hosted. You actually hosted some I Work for Him shows back in Jacksonville, Florida for us. You've been doing Lifework Leadership for a long time. How long have you been doing it?
So I've been doing it 7 years here in Jacksonville, but Lifework's been in Jacksonville 14 years.
But I'm thinking we met you in like 15. That's 9 years ago. I mean,
I feel like it.
That's awesome. So, Tammie, tell us a few statistics about Lifework Leadership in Jacksonville. How many have graduated from the program?
Yeah, good. We are up over 600 alumni here in the city, which is amazing. We are working with or have had over 65 nonprofits come through, and have had people come through the class with over 200 different churches being represented in the city, which is awesome.
So what are some of the comments, Tammie, that you hear from your graduates a year or two down the road about their experience at Lifework and how it's impacted their day-to-day?
Yeah, I think the biggest feedback we get is the fact that Lifework is here for them when they need it. I was telling somebody the other day, it's almost like when you have kids that all my kids are now gone out of the house, and there's still this understood, like, you can always come home when you need it. Life might be doing whatever life is doing, but if you need it, you can always come home. And I think that's what's been so impressive about Lifework here in the city is work may be going well, marriage may be going well, church is going well, you're doing well. And then all of a sudden you need Lifework and you need the connections that Lifework brought. And so we just see alumni returning as they need it. I need a job. I need to hire somebody. I need a lawyer. I need whatever that is. And they want that camaraderie that Lifework brings. And so we see them just re-engaging years down the road sometimes because they know the family of Lifework's always here for them.
So Tammie, you just recently told us some amazing things about Lifework Leadership and alumni in the city there, like what kinds of roles and influence they're having within the leadership of your city. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's been impressive. I have to give credit to the director before me, really pushed to get into the political world in Jacksonville and get Christians engaged there. And so we have seen that continue. So our last 3 elected sheriffs have all been Lifework alumni. 6 city council members who have all been elected are all Lifework alumni. We have 3 or 4 different school board members that have been elected, a congressman. The mayor just paid for somebody to go through the class this year. And so we've been able to watch Lifework, like literally boots on the ground. I mean, change policy and change laws and literally changed the dynamics of this city through, our Lifework alumni. So that's just been amazing to watch God work.
And it's fantastic. Some listeners go, Christians shouldn't be involved in politics. People, Jesus said, bring the kingdom to the earth. And that means bringing our leadership, Jesus-centered, everywhere we go. And it's so powerful. I was so excited when you told us that recently. I'm like, oh, we got to bring that up on today's show. Talk to me about the employers who are paying money to send employees to Lifework Leadership. What are you hearing from the employers a year down the road after their Lifework grads come back to work? They start implementing what they've learned. What are you hearing from them?
Well, I think it speaks for itself because they continue to send people through. So we probably have, in a class of 40, I would say half of them are paid for by their employers. And we do it every year. So, big companies here in Jacksonville, Fanatics, send somebody through Lifework every year. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, our Sheriff's Office pays for someone within the organization to go through every year. Florida Blue, FSCJ, which is a Florida State College of Jacksonville, sends someone to go through every year. WWGay, which is a huge company here. CSX, the train company. And so what I think is amazing is we're starting to see these companies realize the benefit of what Lifework brings to the employees and the people that are going through it. And so it's now just budgeted in for some of these companies that they're just automatically sending people through every year. And it's changing the culture. I mean, we talked to the, CEO here with Fanatics, and he said it has literally, we've now sent probably 10 people through from Fanatics. And he said it's changing the culture on the warehouse floor within Fanatics. So it's just been so fun to watch.
Tammie, you've been doing it a lot of years. And in the midst of that, you had a doctoral. I mean, it's really Dr. Tammie McClafferty. I apologize. I should have introduced that because I read your dissertation. It's extremely impressive. Why do you keep on doing Lifework Leadership year after year there in Jacksonville, Florida?
That's such a good question. At least for me, it brings everything that I am so passionate about together. It brings our faith and our work just into greater conjunction. And although people talk about that, like, hey, I know my faith and my work, Lifework is the only thing that I've been able to get my hands on that's not just a leadership conference or a faith conference or, just a class that you go through that you kind of walk out of and it's done. You can kind of check the box, put it to your LinkedIn profile and be done. But in Jacksonville, it's boots on the ground. Like you finish Lifework and you've been tasked with something, the Holy Spirit's talked to you, somebody in the class has said something, and you leave this journey that we call it, and you get to go out and do it. Like it is an actionable program that you don't just sit through it, you actually go do it. And that is what keeps me coming back year after year, is because we're watching it literally change this city for Jesus Christ. And so I couldn't think of anywhere else I'd rather be.
That is so awesome. So as John Dembeck is looking at bringing Lifework Leadership to Dallas, speak to the people that might be listening that are either in Dallas and going to have this opportunity, or even in cities that, don't yet have it. Why would you be excited about it coming to their city?
Yeah, John's amazing. We've had the opportunity to get to know it. He came to Jacksonville to visit, which was great. So, just have been, in awe of what he and his team are doing there in Dallas. But Lifework, I think what makes it so unique and so special for a city is it crosses denominational barriers. It's not like a church where, and again, nothing wrong with that, but a church is typically going to reach a particular demographic, a particular belief style, whereas Lifework just erases all that. It is young people, it is old people, it is professionals, we have 2 people that are retired this year. They just sold their company and they're like, all right, Lord, what's next? We've got, kids coming out of college that are ready to do this thing right. And so you have this diversity among the professions that are represented, but you have a diversity among the faith-based organizations. So in this year's class, we have 40 in the class. We have 9 different denominations represented in the class. Awesome. And I think that just brings such a unique perspective to faith and work. And it just, we like to say here, it just oozes unity among the city. And so I just think that we tap into something that the churches can't all get, the faith community in and of itself can't get, but we get to do that. And then we get to do life together. So, if you're in Dallas and John, or John reaches out to you, I cannot recommend enough that you take part in Lifework. It will change your life, and it will change the city. It absolutely will change the city.
Look out, Dallas, Texas. Lifework Leadership is coming. Dr. Tammie McClafferty from Lifework Leadership in Jacksonville, Florida. Thanks for joining us this afternoon here on I Work for Him.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, John. Good luck with everything. We'll catch up later. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Martha and I recently switched our mobile carrier to Patriot Mobile, and that was a big decision that we absolutely do not regret, and we would do it again. Patriot Mobile has excellent service, coverage prices, and it's a faith, family, and freedom company. It supports the causes that we believe in and not the causes that the enemy believes in. Anyone can do it today by going to patriotmobile.com/I work for him. Everybody that switches, a little bit of your monthly bill goes to help support I Work for Him.
So, John, you're bringing Lifework Leadership to Dallas. Why are you doing this?
It's been in my heart since I got to Dallas. We moved there in 2016. And when we moved there, I wanted to do it right away. I called Steve French and I asked him about it. He said, that's great. You need a community of believers. You need to have it, some network, and have some nonprofits, and you have to have all of these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just moved here. I don't know anybody. But it's been in my heart. It pumps through my veins, the work and faith matters. And I wanted to do it. And then in March of this year, there was an event. It was seemingly small, but it wound up being very large when we made the decision that we're not leaving Texas. We've lived in 7 different states, 26 different homes. We've moved a lot. When we made the decision, my wife and I, were not leaving, God began to open doors and introductions. And that's how I met Jim and others, and introduced me to people in government, people in the medical community, and people in the business community. And it seemed that the time is right to have this come together and make a difference. And it's one of those things I like to say, I can't not do it. I have to do this. And I'm excited about what God is going to do through it.
So would you say your goal is getting started here fall of 2024? What's your goal?
My goal, by God's grace, I would love to have 50 people come through the program. And those 50 people, I went through a life planning a couple years back, and my life's mission is to engage others to fully express who God has created us to be. That is my goal, is to have people come through and fully express, as Martha, you brought it up, their gifts, their talents, their ability. And it's Stefan likes to call whole life generosity. I'm using my influence. I'm using my talents. I love to have 50 and begin to have 50 change 50 lives, which changes 50 families, changes 50 companies, and potentially 50 churches, and then have that multiplied every year for the rest of my life, as long as God gives me the grace to do it.
All right, let's go into some of the details. Who is it for? Who is Lifework Leadership Dallas, Texas for?
It is for the professional. It's for somebody that finds himself leading in some capacity, whether it is in government or medicine or business. Is somebody that's a believer, that's committed to their faith or wants to be committed to their faith, and says, God, I'm searching for what it is that you would have for me to live a fully expressed, fulfilled life. That's who it's for.
And when can they expect it to start?
It will start on September 12th of next year, by God's grace.
Not next year. Not next year.
No, that's right. This year.
That's right.
Yeah, gosh, this has been brewing for about 18 months, but it's going to be in various places throughout the Metroplex. We say Dallas because that's where I live, but it's going to be in Dallas and Fort Worth. We're going to rotate around the Metroplex. In Arlington, we have a couple of meetings, and it'll be a 9-month program, which will end in May of next year.
And you've got some incredible speakers lined up. What kind of, give us a name, a couple speakers you got lined up. They're going to come in and to speak to your Lifework leadership classes.
Oh, Tammie McClafferty's going to come in and she's going to speak.
No, That'd be Dr. Tammie McClafferty.
Dr. Tammie McClafferty. We have Stefan Tavigian. He is going to come in and he's going to speak to our group. We're trying to get Ron Blue to come talk to us about generosity. And we have case studies. Heath Hill from Line Media is coming in and speaking to us how God radically transformed his business when he became radically obedient to what God was telling him to do. And we're so excited about who we have lined up and who's coming. Dr. Stephen Cremay, who's the Chief Medical Officer for Total Care Clinics, is going to come in, and he's going to be speaking with us. I can't wait for it to start. Well, all we need is registrants.
Before we get to the registrants, because I know that we need to give out a phone number, we need to give out a website, but what's the guarantee? If I decide to send one of my employees to Lifework Leadership, what's the guaranteed impact on my employee?
Your employee is going to go through this. I haven't met someone yet who hasn't gone through it and hasn't had an aha moment. A moment during the program, it's different for everybody, that goes through and says, aha, this is what God would have for me. They're going to have an aha moment, and their lives, the guarantee, it will change your life. It will change your life for the better and give you meaning and purpose.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk to you about this, talk to you about getting registered, maybe getting several of their employees registered, what's a phone number they should call?
It's 954, still a Fort Lauderdale phone number, 895-9992.
One more time.
954.
Yeah.
895-9992.
Excellent.
All right. And the website, go to lifeworkleadership.org and click on Dallas, and it'll run you out to the website talking all about what John Dembeck has planned for Dallas, Texas. Lifeworkleadership.org. Click on the beautiful picture of Dallas and find out more. John Dembeck, we are excited. We are ecstatic for what God's doing there in Dallas, Texas. We know that this September, things are never going to be the same for a really good way in Dallas, Texas. Thank you for bringing your story to I Work For Him today, John.
Yes and amen. Thank you, Jim and Martha.
You've been listening to I Work For Him with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace, it's our mission field, but ultimately, I work for Him. This episode of I Work For Him is brought to you by SaferNet. Online, safernet.com.
If it's easy to use, you will use it. What if you had one place to monitor all the internet activity of everyone in your family? Attention, I Work For Him listeners. Safeguard your business and family with SaferNet VPN. We deliver top-notch cybersecurity with a user-friendly approach, protect sensitive data with a virtual private network, and shield loved ones from harmful content with 84 internet filters. Choose SaferNet VPN for peace of mind. Get secured now. Sign up at safernet.com. That's safernet.com.
Did you know that God has a calling on your life? It's true. He's called you to bring Jesus to the world. For some, that may look like a pulpit or a foreign mission field, but for most of us, it looks like a construction site, a cubicle, a hospital, or a classroom. Wherever it is that you work, live, volunteer, and invest, that is your mission field. To learn more about integrating your faith into your work and retirement, check out our books, I Work For Him, She Works For Him, and I Retire For Him, by going to iworkforhim.com/bookstore.
Thanks for listening to the I Work For Him podcast with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work For Him Nation, or subscribe to our weekly blog. You can also follow us on social media at I Work For Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's at I Work For Him and online at iworkforhim.com. I work, the number 4, him.com.